Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG. And like many of you, my gateway drug in the ham radio was CB when I was a teenager. I think we're hearing from a CBer here. His name is Rex. And he says, I saw your video on Don't Do 1,000 Watts. I wish I could get my 11-meter friends to watch that video. Yeah, that'd be good. That was about the case of a guy who wanted to put out 1,000 watts from an apartment station. And talk about safety issues and all that sort of thing. Not to mention just for himself, but all his neighbors. That's a lot of power. And can do fundamental overload on a lot of electronic devices. That's when there's just so much power coming in. It doesn't matter what the circuit is, you're going to overrun the whole thing. And I worry about pacemakers and baby monitors and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Rex's question is very different. My question is on the opposite end of the scale. I am looking at building an antenna for a Part 15 AM transmitter. Now what he's talking about is an AM transmitter that you can hear on the AM band. Now you'll notice the caveats in Part 15 here. The rules state that you can use no more than 100 milliwatts, 1/10 of a watt. Okay, you'd run this thing on a 9-volt battery, and that the antenna can be no longer than 3 meters or about 10 feet. The frequency range I am looking at is 1.3 to 1.6 megahertz. For an antenna that is so short, what can I do to make the antenna as efficient as possible? Rex, the kit you're building or whatever you're designing from a circuit is designed for a 3-meter antenna. Okay, so it's not a 50 ohm output. It's designed, it's probably got a little coil in there, maybe even a capacitor to tune it a little bit. But it's designed to load up that 10-meter antenna. If you want to help it, connect a wire to ground that's also 3 meters or 10 feet and extend it out the other way, okay? That will act as a counterpoise and help that antenna radiate better. But that's the reason that it gives it. So the kit that you're building or the schematic that you're following is designed for the 10-foot antenna. You don't want to extend it for 2 reasons. 1, it's against the rules. 2, it is going to load the thing funny. Okay? So you don't want to do that because you'll run into issues doing that. The point of this is so that like people within 200 or 300 feet can hear your radio station. This is used for like parking directions at a hotel or a resort or something like that. They'll play an endless loop tape, and it's usually on a frequency above most of the other frequencies on the AM band. In fact, modern AM radios actually tune above where the highest channel, the highest allowed channel for AM is. They're every 10 kilohertz, okay? And then they have 10 kilohertz bandwidth, 5 on each side of the carrier. So you can really stack them in there. Now, normally in a given area, they'll kind of spread out these things so that bad radios don't end up hearing 2 stations at a time. But at night, if you listen on a nice long wire antenna, your AM station can pick up stuff from all over the country. This is why a lot of AM stations have to go off the air at sunset. There are a few stations around the country called clear channel. Those stations can transmit up to 50,000 watts. They have very tall vertical antennas that are a quarter wave with a great big counterpoise done up of literally hundreds of radials. Okay, it's very specific how these things, they're slightly buried for protection, but they're there. If ever you see an AM broadcast station, you'll note that the ground around it is all clear. Okay, there's a small building right at the bottom that houses the actual transmitter and the final tuning circuits. Okay, now it is possible to have like 3 antennas and beam the radio coverage, depending on where your advertisers are and so on. And there's a lot of effort put into drawing the map of where people have a good reception area, because that's how they charge the advertisers, is by reach. Now, they do something similar for FM. FM stations can go up to 100,000 watts, but you don't have the problem that you do with AM going wide at night. FM doesn't do that. So try this some night and find the clear channel station that's on there. There are some that conflict. There's two frequencies nationwide. The old AM stations used to have little triangles inside of circles right on those spots, because those were the Conelrad stations. Those stations would stay on the air and broadcast official information that most people in the U.S. could pick up at least in the evening. Okay? That system is still in place, but it's not advertised, really. Now, I know in Los Angeles, KFI 640 AM is one of those stations. It's a clear channel station. I used to love to listen to KFI because that's where Dodger baseball was. I had an evening job, and I would drive all over Los Angeles taking from banks the checks that they'd taken in for to take them to the clearinghouse, which was downtown LA. Very well hidden place. I'd go around and I'd listen to the ballgame every night. It was a great job. I got paid to listen to the ballgame. There's really nothing you can do except move that antenna around, look at your schematic, follow the tune-up directions precisely, and remember that if you bought a kit or something like that, it's already designed for the 10-foot antenna. Okay, 10-foot, 3-meter antenna. I might have gotten those mixed up there a little bit. This gives you a chance to broadcast to your family, neighbors, if you're in an apartment building, whatever. You're not going to get across town with it unless your town consists of one street with 2 buildings on each side. Okay, but otherwise it's fun to play with. May I suggest that your next step is to get your technician amateur radio license, okay? And you can do that. The technician questions are being updated this year. I already have the necessary information that I need to get from the league on what's changed, what's been updated. So this is what you want to do, is get your technician license. And then you're not limited to a few hundred feet. You put your antenna on the roof on 2 meters, and you can work repeaters all over your metro area and quite a ways out into the boonies too. If you go through a repeater, it can get even longer. If you try something like Echolink, you can talk around the world. So there you have it. Until we next meet, 73.